Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here. I want to take a moment to remind you about an awesome way to train your members on situational awareness that doesn't involve the expense of bringing me to your town. It's called the Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. This online academy is designed to help first responders improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, and it will teach your members everything they need to know for a crazy, affordable price of only $97 a member. And it gets better. The pricing goes down as the number of members that you enroll goes up. For example, if you enroll 31 or more members from your department, the investment is just $49 a member. That's like half the price of a decent pair of gloves. Since the Academy opened for enrollment this past January, more than 800 students have enrolled or completed the Academy, and for good reason. Did you know that issues with situational awareness are consistently identified as contributing factors in near-miss, injury, and fatality events? Please don't wait until your agency has a critical injury or fatality incident. Please don't wait. I get to work with many departments that have experienced critical injuries and fatalities, and they're some of the most hurting organizations you could imagine. Please, I don't want that to happen for you. I can help you to take your understanding of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making to the level that it needs to be. Visit samatters.com, click on the green button on the right side of the homepage labeled Online Academy. There are 2 enrollment levels. Those in the premium class also get to participate in a monthly webinar where I have thought leaders talk about important safety topics. Past guests have included Dave Dotson, Dennis Rubin, Chris Naum, Doug Klein, Joe Prenesti, Ron Canterman, and more. The next webinar is scheduled for September 11th and will feature thought leader, retired fire chief, attorney, and physician's assistant John Murphy talking to first responders about street drugs like fentanyl and heroin. This is a really important topic as this issue is impacting many first response agencies. Then on October 30th, our thought leader in the Academy will be FDNY Battalion Chief Dan Sheridan talking about the first due Battalion Chief size up and situational awareness. Again, these webinars are exclusively for the premium enrolled students, and for those students, the playbacks are also available in the course room in case you missed the live event. Okay, that's enough of the pre-show stuff. Roll that podcast intro. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Dave Dotson, creator of the Art of Reading Smoke program and co-author of the newly released Art of Reading Buildings book. And you're listening to the SA Matters radio show with Rich Gasaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 181 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes. Did you know that I've been sharing this message of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making in live events for 12 years now, and have trained over 59,000 students, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, aviation workers, and more. Really, this message is for anyone who works in environments that are high-risk and high-consequence. If you or someone you know could benefit from training on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, ask them to reach out to me by visiting the samatters.com website and clicking on the Contact Us tab on the top of the homepage. If you're new to this podcast, you've got some homework to do. by going back and listening to some past episodes. I've released a new episode every Tuesday, never missed a week for over 3 years. 181 episodes. No other podcast focused on improving worker safety even comes close to this track record. And I do this for you, the listener. You truly inspire me. I am here for the long run. And for so long as I'm able, I will continue to share this message. A message of hope, a message of inspiration, and a message of encouragement for everyone who works in high-risk environments. I want to make sure you know how to develop and maintain strong situational awareness, and you know how to make quality, high-risk decisions. I'm dedicated to improving your safety and your survival, and to helping you accomplish the very most important goal of all, to go home to the ones who love you. And speaking of sharing the message, I'm coming to you today from beautiful Wellington, New Zealand, where I am in town delivering a full-day situational awareness program for first responders, business leaders, and industrial workers. This is the 4th stop on my month-long international tour. So for this week, I'm doing programs in Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. Those are already done, including a keynote presentation that I did for the Institute of Fire Engineers, Australia branch. Everyone has been so receptive to the message. This is my 2nd tour stop in Australia, so it was really nice to get reconnected with some old friends and to make some new friends. And Australians, they're really easy to make friends with. Wow, are they friendly people. But alas, I had to move on from Australia to New Zealand, where I am now, and really enjoying my time here, even though today is just my first day in the country. But I have a 5-day program itinerary, and I'll announce the rest of the locations for you a little bit later on in this episode. A few weeks ago, I did a program in Evansville, Indiana, and the Evansville Fire Chief, Mike Conley, did an amazing job getting sponsors for this event. From Chief Conley's effort, this 2-day training for his department cost nothing. That's right, he got everything paid for with sponsorships. I tell departments all the time they can host great training events, mine or someone else's, that will have no cost if they get sponsors. Usually the suggestion is met with skepticism, but Chief Conley's case, he wasn't a skeptic. He just said, show me how, and I showed him how. And he went out and started asking for sponsors using a sponsorship sheet that I provided for him. He said it wasn't hard to find companies to step up and offer financial assistance. Sponsors for his program included Vectren, that's the gas and electric utility serving Evansville and other regions of Indiana. Gas and electric companies are great sponsors for situational awareness programs because they can send their employees to the training as well. Indeed, situational awareness is vitally important for those who work in the gas and electric fields. Deaconess Hospital stepped up as a sponsor. Hospitals are great sponsors of situational awareness message too because they can send hospital employees to the training. Yep, indeed, situational awareness is vitally important for medical professionals. The University of Indiana, Southern Indiana, stepped up as the program host. Universities are great sponsors because they like to be partners in their community, and the university got to send their security personnel to the training, which was a value add for the university. You see how this is working? Other sponsors included the Evansville Firefighters Credit Union, Old National Bank, Global Emergency Products, Hoosier Fire Equipment, Mission Barbecue, Public Safety Medical, and Siegel's Uniform. When the dust settled on Chief Conley's efforts, he was able to raise $15,000. That paid for the program, a situational awareness book for all the attendees. It paid for the venue. It paid for lunch for all the attendees for both days. And because all of that added up didn't total $15,000, Chief Conley now has money to seed another training program in the future. That's pretty cool. I tell departments with limited budgets all the time that this is the way to go, and it is. If you want to host a program but you have limited resources, contact me, and I'll help you do what Evansville did. Host a program that costs your department nothing. I always say where the will is strong, a way can be found. And folks, this training on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, it's a game changer. How do I know that? Well, I listen to the attendees. At the live events, on break, at lunch, at the end of the day, they give me that feedback all the time. They send me emails. They post it on my social media. They post it on their social media. Understanding how to develop and maintain situational awareness can truly, and I mean truly, save your life. There is no simpler way to say it. One of the questions I get asked by attendees of live events and listeners to this podcast is, when are you coming to my area? I want to attend a program. Or where are you going to be next? Great questions, and I've made the answer really easy to find out. I've created a link right on the home page of my website of all the upcoming events. All you have to do is go to samatters.com, click the blue box on the right side of the home page, the blue one that says Upcoming Events Schedule. Here's something else you might want to know. If you want to save some money on hosting a program, I do what's called companion programs. Those are programs on adjoining days to other programs. So if you see I'm going to be somewhere in your region and you might want to come along as a companion, contact me and you can save as much as 20% off the program cost. I've done probably somewhere in the range of 120 or more companion programs. No one's ever complained about saving any money on their program. That's what I call a true win-win. Okay, in today's feature segment, it's part one of a two-part interview that I had with members of the Colorado Springs Fire Department, which I recorded a few weeks ago while I was still in the United States. In fact, I recorded it on Labor Day, which was pretty awesome that these three guys would come in on their day off on Labor Day to record a podcast with me. I really appreciated that. I did a program for Colorado Springs Fire Department on May 31 of this year, and that was my second program that I had delivered to the department. And I'm so impressed with their approach to training that I asked them to come on to the show and share what they're doing there, and they agreed. And when I'm done with the feature segment, stick around, and I'll tell you where you can attend an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop event. Who knows? Maybe I'm going to be right in your state or right in your county soon. Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here, and I am super excited to have with me three members of the Colorado Springs Fire Department to talk about how they do some of their training. I was in Colorado Springs earlier this year doing a program, and we got into a conversation about their training methods, their training thought processes, and how they're training recruits and how they're training officers. And I was just so impressed that I bowed to one knee and I begged them to come on and to the podcast and to do a interview to talk about some of the things that they do. Guys, I should also say that it's Labor Day, and they're in here on their day off on Labor Day to record this show with me. And that's pretty impressive, fellas. I appreciate it. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks. Of course.
So just each of you start out by just introducing yourself and talking a little bit about your background.
Okay, my name is Jason Buckingham. I'm a lieutenant with Colorado Springs Fire. Been an officer for about 6 years, been in the fire service for about 20 years. I just spent the last 2 years in our training division, and I was assisted with running the recruit academies. So a lot of my experience that hopefully we'll talk about today will be regarding how we bring in new firefighters and train them to adapt to the way that we want to perform at our jobs.
Okay. Thanks,
My name's Bryan Lynch. I'm a lieutenant with Colorado Springs Fire Department. I've been in the fire service 20 years and started my fire service career at the small combination fire department, one single station combination department just south of Colorado Springs. And I've been on the Colorado Springs Fire Department for about 16 years. And outside of the Colorado Springs Fire Department, I'm a co-owner and co-founder of Irons and Ladders, LLC, which is a fire training company and go around to really in the Midwest and west part of the United States, talking strategy and tactics and just talking fire and teaching fire stuff.
Cool. Thank you, Bryan.
I'm Jesse Weddle. I'm a firefighter at Station 8 on Colorado Springs Fire Department. And with Colorado Springs for about 7 years, and I was a volunteer and then full-time in the Kansas City area for about 3 years before coming here. I've been involved with the training department in the way of a partnership between IFF Local 5 and the training division to bring in speakers and other training to the line, so that we can have the line has a say also in what is brought to them for training. And I have been lucky enough to be a hands-on instructor with Bryan at Irons and Ladders as well.
Good. Thank you, guys. So you're sharing your passion beyond just the day-to-day in your career, and going out and sharing the message with others. And we'll get a chance to swing back and give you a chance to talk a little bit more about what Irons and Ladders is doing too, and how people might be able to find you and get connected with you, and perhaps bring you into their department. But we'll do that after we get through the list of the formal questions. But we will have a chance to talk about that as well. So let's start with the first question. How does the department instill a balance between instructing your new recruits to follow orders, but yet at the same time teaching your new recruits how to be thinking firefighters? And this is a pretty hot topic in some of the programs I do, because there are firefighters who will say, the firefighters will say, it isn't my job to think. It's my job to follow the direct orders of my superior officers, no matter what. And I think, oh my goodness, it's almost like robotic thought process that they've been programmed not to think. And I'm super excited that this is one of our questions to talk about. So take me through this.
Yeah, well, I can refer to my experience with the training academy. We did 4 academies in the last year and a half. And the way we structure it is we teach basic skills. We expect them to perform tasks exactly how we teach it. So the first half of the academy basically is the task. Do it this way. There's not much thinking involved. We're developing that muscle memory, getting them used to the equipment and the techniques that we use to perform firefighting tasks on the drill field. After a certain point, basically when they take their Firefighter 1 test, we try to transition, and this takes, it's not just the following 8 weeks, it's the following 25 years of your career, right? Learning how to think, still perform tasks, and complete them in a proficient manner, but be sizing things up, be thinking, be observing, using your situational awareness, and making the smaller decisions that are within the scope of their position to accomplish things, I guess, in a safe and efficient manner. So some of the things we do in the academy specifically, once they're through that Firefighter 1 and they have the basic skills down, the foundation, then we start to challenge them with scenarios. So instead of just making a fire attack, we tell them, this window's open, this door is open, why are you closing things, why are you opening things, what do you do when it gets excessively hot, what do you do when you're lost, challenging them on some of the communications things. You're 30 feet inside the building and your partner goes down. Do you proceed with the hose line? Do you call a mayday? Do you just pull them back out? Giving them those options. As we know, there's so many different ways to accomplish a task and mitigate a situation, that they have to be able to come up with more than the one way we taught them. So air management scenarios, firefighter down scenarios, the ventilation, VIS, that type of stuff. We're constantly asking them why they're doing things after that point of after they have those foundational skills. So it's not just perform this task blindly, regardless, the same way. It's getting them to think about why they're doing things, and then if they deviate from that routine, what are the consequences? So that's some of the stuff we introduce specifically in the academy to our new firefighters.
So did I understand right that you spend about 8 weeks after they've completed their Firefighter 1 going through these scenarios of teaching them how to be thinking firefighters. Did I catch that right? It's about eight weeks of practicing this?
Yeah, roughly. Our academy is about 17 weeks long. Somewhere right in the middle, they'll take that Firefighter 1 exam. And then from that point on, we're teaching them more of company evolutions, how to operate in a team, how things are practically done on the fire ground within our job line operations. Mm-hmm. So as you know, when they have those job performance or JPRs that they perform, those job sheets, they're very rigid. It's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 8. But that's not how the fire ground goes. So we want them to be able to adapt and be flexible, but they have to have that foundational skill first.
Yeah, right, exactly. I agree completely. But Jason, what's that look like after you've, taught them the 8 procedure, and then that day comes when you throw at them something that doesn't fit conveniently in the 8-step process, and then they have to start thinking. How do they react to that? Are they? I don't want to speculate the answer. You tell me.
Yeah, some don't have a reaction at all. Some will still follow that procedure to the steps that we taught them. Some people will just slow things down, and you can see that they're processing and trying to figure out, well, I can't do that routine task like I was taught for the last 8 weeks. What else can I do? And then some have some basic instincts on how to accomplish, other ways to accomplish. And they get creative, and they're not always right. But if they can still get to that end result, safely and efficiently, like we just mentioned, there's many ways to accomplish the task. So we'll let them proceed until something's unsafe. And when they get done, then we talk about, well, what other options did you have? Could you have done this? Could you have done, something different that would have been better? Or, did you make the best choice? Mm-hmm. But we want them to have the tools in the toolbox. We want them to have 3 or 4 different options mm-hmm. when it comes to performing ventilation or performing fire attack or forcible mm-hmm. entry. Because when the one thing works, as we know, you got to move on to something else. You got to have plan B and C ready. So right. That's what we're trying to do.
And really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them on their own to resiliently develop their own plan B and C based on scenarios or conditions that you provide to them. You don't tell them what the B and C answers are. You let them figure this out, right?
Yeah, it's much more fun to watch them figure it out the first time. but we do, we'll do very brief after action reviews, and that's when we'll divulge, the method you chose was acceptable or unacceptable or appropriate. But here's 2 other things we could have done. And we're asking the group too. They're starting to work in teams then. So they're also giving each other ideas. Mm-hmm. One person has one idea, another person has a different one. The whole crew has some really good options.
Mm-hmm. So. Now, do you ever, with consideration for their safety, obviously being first and foremost, do you ever let them take their decision all the way to a failure point? Again, with consideration that you don't want them getting hurt, but will you let them go all the way to making mistakes and seeing that what they resiliently decided in the moment isn't working, or do you stop it and get them corrected and on a right track before it gets to that point?
It's probably situationally based, but we can't let them go for an hour trying to make a firefighter down rescue or something like that. So we might have to steer them at times, but it's kind of using our judgment as well. In the training environment, if they're not going to get hurt, great lessons learned when they make mistakes and they fail. So we will certainly allow them to do that. Better there than anywhere else, right? So if that's an option, that's what we go with. Sometimes we'll stop them and say, did you think about this? Did you missed a door back there, you missed a window back there. You want to go back and look for it. So it depends what's the best learning environment for them. if a complete failure of the evolution is the best tool to teach that particular lesson, then that's the way we go. If we need to interrupt them and steer them a certain way, then just for efficiency's sake, we'll do that.
Okay. And one last question in this vein, then we're going to move on to something else. When in the process of learning how to be resilient problem solvers through their academy training, then they graduate and they get assigned to a company and they go out onto the street. Is there any component built into your training where you teach them perhaps how to speak up to a company officer who might be making a mistake, that they can see that company officer is going to make a mistake and they resiliently have figured out maybe a better path to success? Is this part of the training of teaching them how to share their creative problem-solving ideas up the chain of command once they get to the street?
I don't know that we have a formal process to that. Yes, in training, they're new employees. A lot of them are just wanting to do what their officer, their company asks them to do. And it's probably very challenging for those new employees to speak up and say, I think this is wrong. I think there's a better way. I think this is unsafe. Even that's a challenge for a new employee, especially when it's a higher ranking individual. So do we preach that in the academy? Yes. I don't know that any fire department culture is real conducive to addressing or confronting your superior officers. It's a challenge throughout the whole rank structure.
Yeah, it is. And I was so hoping you would tell me you had the solution. Because then this would be the golden lesson. You're right that it is a challenge, because when they go out on the street, they want to be good employees and good firefighters, and part of being perceived as a good firefighter is you follow the orders of your superiors, and the challenge comes when they might see something isn't going to work as to how they convey that in a professional way that does not create a potential consequence for themselves. So yeah.
I think a lot of that comes with experience, figuring out how to be tactful about making those suggestions to the ranks above you. But we plant the seed starting in the first few weeks of the academy. We preach, especially with safety concerns, like there's always different ways to do things. And sometimes they learn something in the academy that isn't exactly the same way their officer wants them to perform that task on the line. And they end up dancing around both, and they figure it out though. I mean, and it comes with some maturity and some experience working in the firehouse.
Okay, good, thanks. When, as you know, there's a lot of research being done in the fire service, NIST and UL and others, and then that research gets published, and then as the research gets published, then fire departments then are in a position to make a decision as to whether they accept or embrace that research, or whether they reject it, or just set it aside and do nothing with it. And some of the research has created some really new ways of looking at how we do our business, and some of it has created some angst and some consternation within our industry as well. When the new fire service research becomes available to you guys, how do you disseminate this information throughout your organization? What's the process? What's the message? How do you get people on board with what you might want them to be embracing, even though it might be a difficult sale to them? How does that work for you guys?
Well, we have a pretty
I've been involved in numerous job-wide trainings based off of not only our own research, but off of the UL NIST studies and other industry standards and industry changes within the fire service. And the one thing I can tell you is that, from my perspective, is that water boils from the bottom. We've heard this before, and change happens from the ground up. I think it's really easy, certainly, for a new fire chief to come into an organization and say, we're going to change this and we're going to do it this way. But I think historically, if you look at those things, sometimes those changes don't last because there may be a lack of buy-in from the line firefighters. They may not understand it. They're doing it just as, hey, the fire chief told me that we have to do this. So every training that I've been involved in, and it's primarily revolved around fire training. Really, I can tell you a very short story. We were tasked, myself and 4 or 5 other firefighters were tasked with completing a ventilation training by our training division years ago to the rest of our the rest of line firefighters. And with that training, we recognized a deficiency in the way that we operate and operate hose lines. We weren't, to put it bluntly, we've taken a weakness and made it a strength. So I'm comfortable saying this 5 or 6 years later, but we took a weakness in managing hose lines and we made it one of our strengths. We recognized that we were deficient. And so we built a plan, and we built a plan that was based off of a sort of a national class, a national standard through Nozzle Forward and Aaron Fields and the things that he's doing from the Seattle Fire Department. And we approached our training division and said, we were there for every single one of these evolutions and watched our entire organization. And here's the consistencies that we're seeing showing up in being able to put out a fire. And it's like developing a business plan. You start with, here are the facts. We have a deficiency. And it's really easy to just go, hey, chief, we're not doing well in this area. Come up with a solution. But we came up with a solution. We built a solution from that was, I think, 25 or 30 firefighters from our organization who went to Nozzle Forward and went to the class. And then we took everything that Nozzle Forward was doing, and we took the things that would fit within our own organization and developed a full day class for each company on the line that would come out. And it took us about 3 or 4 months to get everybody through it, to where we taught them techniques for Nozzle Forward and taught them techniques on stretching and managing and operating hose lines. But it wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a process of, we went to the Chiefs group. We developed this presentation, went to the training division, and had it vetted through the training division, and had lots of questions and lots of solutions from the training division. And then we sat in front of the Chiefs group, the entire battalion Chiefs group and the deputy chiefs and the fire chief, and said, this is what we want to change, and this is why we need to change it. Here's our problem. Here's our solution to that change. And then once it was blessed, it was rolled out to the line. And that's the model that we've used. That's the model I've used for every time I've tried to change something. You have to get buy-in, not only from the top, but you have to get buy-in and understanding from the bottom. And part of that is telling people, teaching people the why, and understanding the why, and understanding the decision-making process, and understanding in the research and how it benefits, and how certain parts of the research really benefit us and really apply to us, and how other parts of the research, maybe they don't, based on our organization size or staffing model, whatever it might be. But for me, and I think for our organization, you have to get buy-in, and the change always starts from the bottom, because it's really ingrained in our culture now, the way that we operate and the way that we do things. Nozzle Forward is taught in every one of our fire academies now. So our version of Nozzle Forward, it's not the true Nozzle Forward, but our version of Nozzle Forward is taught at every single fire academy. So when these recruits graduate, they come online, all they know how to do is clamp slide and hip grip and push down hallways, and they know and understand the terminology. And we've built that to where now we have, I don't know, in the last 5 years, every recruit that's come on. So we have that foundation that's constantly building. So that's really our department standard. Same with ventilation, same with understanding fire behavior and reading smoke, and numerous things that we've done for the organization, and the numerous trainings that we've been involved in, all start from the ground up. And that's really kind of our business plan.
Nice. Why is understanding the latest research so important to a fire department or to your fire department?
Well, I think we're all students of the craft, right? We should all be trying to get better. I look at the recruit level training as kind of your foundation. It teaches you how to do things so you can operate on the fire ground, and everything you do after that is just building on your knowledge base. And I think what the UL studies have done and how they're applicable to our organization is that they answer the question of why. They've been able to clarify some things and have been able to bust some myths, so to speak. They've been able to clarify some tactics and what happens, and they've been able to answer the why. If I do really what UL doesn't really endorse tactics. They just tell you they're a cause and effect. If you do A, expect B. If you do C, expect D. That's what's going to happen through a scientific process that's been vetted and peer reviewed by other individuals. And so when you look at that research, it really tells you if you spray water from the outside and you do it this way, it's going to do this. If you cut a hole in the roof, expect this to happen. If you break a window, expect this to happen. And I think that's really kind of comes down to what we do on the fire ground is we manage expectations. Because if we show up and we have a fire where we have a single room and contents fire on a single story, single family dwelling, and we've got a fire that's auto communicating out of the window and it's starting to run along the soffit. I may say we're going to take the hose line in through the front door and we're going to put a crew on the roof to ventilate the roof. My expectation is that 1 3/4 hose line that I assign is going to be able to manage that fire. My expectation is the vertical ventilation will not only localize the fire over the fire room, but also localize it over in that attic area. So we manage expectations, and that's what UL has really taught us, is that here's your expectation. If it's something other than what I expect, it teaches us or can reaffirm that maybe we need to start thinking about this, or maybe here's another option. So I think it's important because it helps clarify and it provides some direction to what we do as an organization.
There are out there some firefighters, might even go as far as say some fire organizations, that are really choking up on accepting this science because it runs so counter to what they have been taught, known, practiced, and believed for their entire career. And now here comes a couple of brainiac scientists who throw some meters on some stuff and think they've come up with smarter data than my 20 years of going down the hallway. I hope you've perhaps experienced this, seen this, maybe in even in your outside teaching.
Sure.
Have you had to overcome some of that kind of mindset and challenge in the Springs as well? I mean, I can't imagine the size of your department that everybody just started throwing up their pom-poms and saying, "Oh, great, call me on board." That you had some resistance there.
Everybody's on board with it 100% of the time. We don't get any No, in reality, yeah, we obviously have some pushback, and we obviously have a lot of people who had questions as to why doesn't this match what I know. You're telling me one of the biggest things for us was in 2003 or two or three, we did our organization did some transitional fire attack stuff. And there was a lot of pushback from people because, we were taught, and as you were taught, do not put water from the outside of the building to the inside because you can bush fire and you can do all these things and you can make the situation worse, which in reality can be true. So we have to understand that. But what we can't deny is that there is a benefit to doing that in certain situations. And I think part of it for me was when you approach that situation, because I was well aware of it beforehand. Because when I started reading some of the stuff when the studies came out, I have to admit that I was somewhat skeptical at first with some of the things that were being said. But I look at it from this perspective. We have scientific data and information and statistics that we can use and draw from, and then we have experiential data. And that experiential data is what we know to be true from fighting fires, what we think what our experience is going inside the building. And a good example of that is for me was the vertical ventilation study. When that came out, anybody who's been inside of a vertical ventilation or been inside of a building when it's vertically ventilated knows that as soon as that hole is louvered and the ceiling is punched through, everything tends to go up, and it creates a cooler, safer, a better environment. This ability, the host team stands up, walks to the fire area. It creates that tenable, survivable space we look for. So when I read that, I said, yeah, of course, that's obvious. But then when you read further along into some of the tactical considerations from UL, they say, but if you don't put water on the fire, you're going to make that situation much worse because every horizontal opening now becomes an inlet. And I thought, that just doesn't seem right to me. And part of that was my experience wasn't matching what that science was saying. And the reason when I sat down and really was analytical about it was because it had never happened to me. Things had never got worse after a vertical vent because we always did put out the fire. We always were able to complete the searches because the tactic worked and was designed to work the way UL talked about. You get all this lift, you get all the benefits from the vertical vent. However, if you don't put water on the fire or if you vent too early, then this is what may happen and occur. And so part of it was just coming at it from a foundation of, I always think whenever there's disagreement or consternation is let's find our common ground. And when you look at the UL studies, I would venture to guess that probably the American Fire Service agrees with about 90%, if not more, of the things that are coming out from UL. The scientific data is matching their experiential data. It's that 10%. It's that little gap that we have to bridge to say, is this correct? Is this working? Or does this match my experience? And I think we owe it to ourselves as an organization, at least the way I looked at it, the way I've approached it is, if it doesn't match what our organization is doing, we need to understand why, and we need to investigate that. It's not, we can't just rest on our laurels and say, well, it adds up 90% of the time, so that's good enough. We need to understand why isn't it matching that last 10%? Why aren't we going all the way with this? And there may be some reasons why, whether they're experiential or whether they're scientific. So
I've got a little bit to add just on how our department addresses some of this research at the recruit academy level. And we all know across the United States, fires are less prevalent. So our experience overall, 10 years on the job now is not the equivalent of 10 years on the job in the 70s or 80s, all things being equal. So one of the things we've tried to, to bridge that gap and to create or tie the experience or lack thereof with the science is introduce those things in the Recruit Academy. So our fire behavior classes, and Bryan's one of the individuals that helps teach this every year to the recruits, they'll spend 6 or 8 hours studying that NIST and UL research and applying it to fire scenarios, incidents that happen in Colorado Springs, and just practical application of that science to make that transition easier. So as they're coming into our fire academy, that's all they know. They know there's this huge body of science that's really telling us a lot of good things, and this is how I apply it to my everyday job. The science is, to some degree, and the study of fire behavior is taking place or taking the place of our personal experiences, because we're not going to a fire every week. In the past, people relied on that anecdotal experience. Now we're having to study a little bit more and hope that applies to our next incident and figuring out from there.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason and Jesse and Bryan, for this interview. This is, again, part 1 of a 2-part interview. We're going to cut it here, and when we pick up next week, we're going to continue the discussion of how research is applied to training and operations with some powerful examples of near-miss events that they have experienced as well. I have a favor to ask of you. You. Yep, you out there listening. You on the treadmill. I'm talking to you. You driving your car. I'm talking to you. And you, the one that's walking your dog. I'm talking to you. Even you, the one who fell asleep while listening to this episode. Wake up! I'm talking to you. I need a favor. I launched this podcast to give voice to those who've experienced near-miss events. The stories that have been shared with me at live events have been amazing and extremely educational. But we need to get these lessons shared with a larger audience. That's why I launched this podcast in the beginning. Just to give you, the person who's had a near miss, a platform to share your story and your lessons, just like so many have in the history of this podcast. So if you've experienced or witnessed a near miss while on the job and would like to have this platform, I'll give it to you, to share your lessons learned with others, please contact me by visiting the SAMatters.com website, clicking on the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage. Think about it for a moment. The lessons learned from your worksite near miss could save someone else's life. That's really powerful. And what a wonderful gift that might end up being for someone. If you want to share your experience, contact me. If you want to send me feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Just go to the SA Matters website, click the Contact Us tab. That sends me an email. Or if you prefer, you can send me a message on Facebook, on Twitter, or on LinkedIn. And in the event that you might have missed me somewhere along the way and you want to get connected with me on social media, you can do that too. Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Recent tour stops have included the NASA Glenn Research Center, the Tennessee Safety and Health Conference in Nashville, Evansville, Indiana, Redmond, Washington, Lexington County, South Carolina, where I got to see the total eclipse in totality in Lexington County. Awesome. Chesapeake, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, Topeka, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, Davis, California, Dallas, Texas, Sydney, Australia, Melbourne, Australia, Perth, Australia, and of course where I am now, in Wellington, New Zealand, where I'll be doing programs October 11 and 12, in Auckland, New Zealand, after Wellington. Then I go to Amsterdam for programs in Amsterdam, October 16, 17, and 18th in Amsterdam. And finally, on the last week of October, I will be in Antwerp, Belgium for programs on October 23, 24, and 25 in Antwerp. In all, when the dust settles on this trip, I will have delivered 14 programs and enjoyed 77 flight hours during the month of October. It's not the number of programs I'm worried about. I love that part. It's not the number of flights. That doesn't bother me at all. It's the number of time zone changes that I will have to endure. I'm just hoping that I can stay conscious, alert, and oriented. This will be by far the craziest SA Matters tour stop event I've ever orchestrated. Once I get back from the international tour, if you want to join me on November 2, I will be in Billings, Montana. November 4, Madison, Wisconsin. November 9 to 12, Clearwater Beach, Florida. November 16th, back in Billings, Montana. November 20 in Boston, Massachusetts. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stops, head over to the SAMatters.com website, click on the blue box on the right side labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. Check back often because it's always changing. If you're interested in hosting a program, there's a few dates left in November and December, and I'm actively booking programs now for 2018. So if you think your company or your agency or your association or your regional conference or your state conference or your national event might want to host a program on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making, have them contact me, SAMatters.com, Contact Us tab. I've got great staff. They'll make the whole process very easy for you, I promise. The last time I was delivering programs in southwest Minnesota, I stopped by to visit the sponsor of this podcast, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire is a fire truck manufacturing company that makes amazing all-poly-bodied fire apparatus, and it's changing the industry. If you haven't checked them out yet, you need to. Just go to MidwestFire.com. MidwestFire.com. Anyhow, while I was there, I got a chance to sit down and talk to some of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Let's listen into a conversation I had with engineer Tyler LeBrun about what differentiates Midwest Fire and their competition. So, Tyler, what differentiates the manufacturing process here at Midwest Fire as, say, compared to the competitors who build fire trucks as well? What makes you stand out in comparison?
I don't really know exactly what kind of systems the other competitors have in place, but the one thing that I really think that sets us apart, that I've seen in the side of the manufacturing field, is trying to implement and adhere to some different lean ideologies, and that being said, lean manufacturing really helps us deliver a better quality products more efficiently with less waste to the customer. And also on the other side of that, I think the team that we have here, our manufacturing team and all the people that we have, with the way we work together, the teamwork that we have, and everybody's positive attitude, and it may sound kind of cliche, but the can-do spirit that we have, I think really helps us separate ourselves from the competition.
But I think one of the things too that I noticed when we were touring around on the shop floor is, as I looked around, I didn't see hundreds of employees. This is not a company that employs hundreds of people. It's an employee it's a company that employs a small number of employees with a great deal of dedication, and obviously that lends some to this teamwork and this sense of family that is going on here that might actually be an asset compared to a large company where an employee just might be a number.
Exactly, most definitely, and that's something that we see is all of our employees are able to work together to build these trucks, because it's not something that they're just going to sit in their station and only do their work. If they see that somebody else needs help, they're going to go over there and help them do that, help them get ahead in their part of the process so that the product can keep flowing through the manufacturing floor.
Nice, thank you. So that's really example of what separates Midwest Fire on the manufacturing side from their competitors. So check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thank you to Midwest Fire President Sarah Atchison and all your staff for your awesome commitment to improving the safety of first responders. I really appreciate your support of my mission. Hey, if you're not part of the SA Matters community of learners yet, what are you waiting on? There are over 9,000 people connected here, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train employees to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. Joining is free, and when you join, you'll get my monthly email newsletter that contains featured content from the blog and the podcast. It really is the best way for us to stay in touch with each other. The easiest way to join is to text SA Matters to 22828. That's the letter S, the letter A, and the word matters. All together, one word, SA Matters, to 22828. You'll get a reply message telling you that you have access to my program handouts, because this is the same way that I, in a live event, give the program handouts to people. So you'll get the bonus of getting the program handouts, so you can see what what's covered in a program when you sign up. If you want to get connected with me on Twitter, it's at Rich Gasway on Twitter. On LinkedIn, you can search for Rich Gasway on LinkedIn. You can watch my videos on the SA Matters YouTube channel. That's SA Matters TV on YouTube. All together, one word, SA Matters TV. On Facebook, you can like the SA Matters page on Facebook. I have all these platforms because I know not everyone consumes their content in the same way on the same platform, and I'm trying to reach as many as I can on whatever platform they prefer most. Well, that's it. Episode 181 is complete. Thank you to my guests from Colorado Springs Fire Department, Jason Buckingham, Lieutenant from Station 8, Jesse Weddle, Firefighter from Station 8, and Bryan Lynch, Lieutenant from Station 1. Thank you to our awesome podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, and organizations that have hosted live events. Thank you to all who attended the virtual training event that I did on National Situational Awareness Day on September 26th. And thank you to the more than 800 students who've enrolled in the Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners of this podcast show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.